Hi everyone, and welcome along. Like the new backgrounds, welcome along to the Sunday market update for today, 25th of July, 2021. As it all flies by, life seems to continually rock along despite the chaos that's out there in the world, I guess, at this point in time. Look, been an interesting week in the market again. Seen some interesting pullbacks and seen some interesting pushbacks. So US stock market's back at all-time highs, oil back on the rally, and gold just doing nothing at all. And hey, Eddie, over the weekend, again, Bitcoin back to its weekend rally days, where it's put in a decent little rally over the weekend when perhaps no one's watching it. It'll be interesting to see how that rolls out on Monday morning when it comes back into normal trading times, as well as its sort of own 24/7-day-a-week version of it. We've got the team coming in today. We've got the specialists coming in to talk macro markets today. We've got fundamentals today. We've got gold. We've got oil. We got cryptocurrency. We got currency index. We got technician. We got the whole lot coming up. So make sure you grab yourself a coffee, settle yourself in, and look forward to really setting this week of trading up. Julian, it's I think the more you know, the more confusing this market really is.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. Hello, everybody, wherever you are in the world. And Paul, thank you very much for setting me up. I couldn't have asked for a better introduction to what I wanted to talk about. Guys, Paul talked about coffee. For those of you that have been following my conversations, both on the Trader Cafe and within the group at Actions to Wealth, and also slightly wider reach as well too from time to time, may be aware of my views about coffee for some time. I believe I took my first positions in coffee down at 90 cents, which, by the way, guys, is off the bottom of this chart. But what's been happening the last few days has been amazing. Now, there's been some problems. There's been some problems in Brazil about the way in which the harvest has gone and the way in which the crop is looking like, because there's been some droughts out there. But this is another example of a vertical market, right? This is the weekly chart of coffee futures. Look at what has happened in the last week. Okay, coffee was trading at 150 just a couple of weeks ago, and now it's trading almost at 200. That is a 30% move. It doesn't just happen in Bitcoin, it happens elsewhere too. Just adding to the crazy world that we're living in. Okay, look, quick thing I wanted to point out to you guys about what I see is very interesting. So here is a chart of the price of coal. This is a daily chart of the price of coal. Now, for those of you that know anything about the Australian economy, you'll understand that coal exports are pretty important to those guys. And normally, the amount of money the Australians make out of coal exports is a really good leading indicator for how well sort of the Australian economy is sort of doing overall. Obviously, lots of caveats to that these days because we're living in crazy times, but it's still the main point, right? So when you look at that, and I also want to just share with you what happened to copper this week as well too. Let me just find my copper chart. I do apologize, everybody. Just give me 2 seconds to get to my copper chart this week. We just go and look at a daily. Now, folks, the reason why this is interesting is the thin blue line that you can see here. This is vaguely major support, right? Vaguely. For those of you that have followed my work in the past, from a technical perspective here, you've had the market coming down for some time, consolidation, test of the lows, so breakdown, and then as soon as we broke back above this previous high here, or this, if you like, the break, call it the breakdown high, the copper market has rallied to the top side, right? So it's had 4 strong days, right? I suspect on Monday it's going to trade high. Why do I think that? Well, because here's your intermediate term low, and here's your higher low. So technically, we've got a few things setting up here that make the copper chart quite interesting, right? So, okay, so when we think about commodities, we always think about Canadian dollars, we think about the Australian dollar, we think about the New Zealand dollar. They're normally known as the commodity dollar, so the COMDOL currencies. And, you look at oil, you look at gold, you look at the price of coal, you look at the price of copper, and you take a sort of a rough aggregation, all of those, and say, okay, well, if we aggregate all of those, what does that all mean? Well, if they're all those commodities are heading in one direction, and let's say that technically we've had a reversal recently in some of these markets, right? And coal's just been going straight up anyway, right, then what does that mean? Well, that would normally mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out that normally that's quite bullish for those currencies. So then, well, let's go and take a look at that Aussie dollar against the US dollar. Is it really bullish? Is it bullish at the moment? So let's look at this chart, right? And what do we see? Well, no, we see the exact opposite. Let's take this out to a weekly, right? So I was just doing this with some of the guys in the trading crew. We were talking about this and shooting some ideas around. So when you think about what's been going on with those commodities recently, the question has to be asked, why is the Australian dollar sitting near its lows? And actually, it's not just the Aussie. The Kiwi and also the Canadian dollar recently have been trading down. Right, well, that doesn't make any sense if you look at their underlying commodity prices. Yeah, there may be some caveats about COVID. There also may be some geopolitical things in there as well too that I don't really understand too greatly, but I've got some views on, but I'm not sure whether they're right or not. And actually, quite frankly, do we care? So not really, because my opinion doesn't really count on that. So what I do is I look at this and I go, well, if we look at the price of those commodities, why then are those currencies too low? So something is wrong, right? So either the price of the commodities is completely wrong, or the currency is too cheap and it therefore is an opportunity. So holistically, right? Holistically think about this, right? So what do we see here? We see the classic asymmetry of trading coming up, right? Where that rubber band has been stretched, right? Quite a long way between where things ought to be and where they are. And so I think there's some opportunities here. I don't know about the exact placement, but I'm just going to point that out on the commodity currency side that maybe they're getting a little on the cheap area versus the US dollar. So I've been pretty keen on the US dollar for quite some time, and you guys would know I've been talking about potential reversal for quite some time. We've seen that in Singapore dollars. We've seen that in the Canadian. We've seen it in the Aussie. We've seen it in the Kiwi. Those reversals have happened, right? So if you like, everybody, I think, was far too bullish of the currencies, and then that bullishness has disappeared now, right? So people have been taken out of their positions and they've reversed, right? So now we've got to think about what next, because that's our job as traders. We think about what next. Now, the price action doesn't necessarily support a change of opinion here, but what we're on watch for is the market switching round again to go back into those commodity currencies. So just be on watch for that. Guys, I don't really have a lot else to say too much about what's happening in the world at the moment. Really, I know that there's a lack of breadth in the US stock market and the way equity markets are trading worldwide. So they're not really, the S&P's new highs, but not a lot else is. And the underlying stocks, there's only one or two sectors that are doing incredibly well. The rest of the broad market isn't. I think that's a problem for later on in the summertime, maybe August, maybe September time, who knows. I'm always cautious about stocks at the moment because I think there's a lot of crazy going on. So, as always, be very cautious around things like that without having a particular strong trading view right here, right now. What I did do, the last thing I wanted to point out, and maybe, Paul, if I'm allowed to do this, I don't really want to do crypto, but I think it's worth pointing out. Look, I think there's been an opportunity unfolding in some of the crypto space here. I talked a few weeks ago about volatility unwinding. So what I meant by that is that, things were too volatile. For you to take a position in Bitcoin or Ethereum or things like that, from a longer term perspective, it was really hard when it was moving 10 or 15 or 20% in a day, completely crazy, right? So whatever position you took, you could have been wrong in an hour, right? Whereas now what's been happening over the course of the last few weeks is that volatility is falling away and out of the market. We needed to have that happen in order to start to establish longer term positions. And for those of you who are technically orientated, or even those who aren't, you can easily see, looking at this daily chart here, you can see a triple bottom taking place in Ethereum and that bounce off it. I've been making some calls around Ethereum recently. I'm quite keen on it, with all the disclaimers about when and where you decide to do something. Right, that's up to you guys, but you can see that bounce. There was a ring low on the on Ethereum about 3 or 4 days ago, and it maybe is bouncing now. Where it gets to, who knows? I never know. You could draw trend lines on this and try and come up with something. I'm sure Shukri may have something to say about it later on. But from a technical trading perspective, it trades quite well right now, with a stop loss sitting at that triple bottom low. Right, if it breaks that, then maybe something else is going on. Maybe we head down to new low levels, and it's a different picture. But just bear in mind, for the time being, it looks pretty strong, looks pretty cool. Paul, that's it from me. That's the wrap up. Thank you.
Cheers, Julian. Thank you very much. Always good to get your macro view, and it'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks. I just feel like at some stage the fog lifts and it all becomes clear again. And every now and again, there's some stuff in here which is just a little interesting to watch. And for traders, being up to date on that makes a massive difference to them. So thank you very much for your time, as always. From here, we go to Alexis to have a look at the fundamentals, from the macros to the fundamentals. No ass on the data today. Should be going from Alexis next. Geoff will host the show for the next 10 minutes or so. I'll see you guys back in a few minutes. Lexi, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Julian. Awesome stuff there. So basically, I think a lot of stuff has shaken up last week. Good for you guys if you have caught it. So let me just reiterate last week's positions that we were looking at. So we were looking at Aussie shorts, Euro shorts, and dollar longs, right? I would have to kind of agree with Julian down here about maybe, I'm not sure whether the Aussie will continue going short. So there are a couple of stuff that I was looking at to see how to take advantage of the shake-up that we had the last couple of weeks. So, but I think one thing that caught my eye in the reading was, I think, one of this. So this website is worldexports.com, is just some free stats. And what really interested me was this area over here. So last year, which was 2020, the year-over-year increases that consumed Australian exported goods were US leading with 31.6%. And look at China. China is only 1.4%. So this was also something pretty interesting that I think in one of our earlier chats that Lloyd mentioned about, is China still going to so-called support Australia in that sense? And how long, how will the distribution of this exporting partners then come into play moving forward, right? So do bear in mind that the statistics we see here are a bit of a lag. So they are from the latest last year's data. So this was 2020 data. Of course, this is 2021 now. We don't really have that out yet. But you can see that China had a 90.6 billion, which is about 43% of Australians' exports. So while China still does have a large hand in the basket, are they changing it up? US, of course, have increased their consumption by 31.6%, and then China is only 1.4%. So this comes to show a question mark, right? Whether or not we will continue to see the Chinese renminbi currency, whether or not there is still any kind of close correlation that comes from this moving forward. So with that in mind, I'm a little bit more hesitant on taking continued Aussie shorts. I will probably take a more technical standpoint of this and kind of wait to see whether or not it's a good time to go long. But I'm a bit more hesitant. And also on the renminbi side, you can see a consolidation happening over here on a weekly time frame. So again, I'm just going to sit out the Aussie for now and probably wait to see if there's anything happening which could give me a upturn. Another reason to kind of back that would of course be just normal stats. If we go and take a quick peek at the Australian jobless rate. So we were looking at unemployment and inflation for the last couple of weeks. You can see that Australia still has a nice gradual decrease in the latest unemployment stats, which is kind of a good thing. It means that they are trying to get sorted in a way. What I am curious about is the euro side. It did have a dip as well, 7.9. But if you compare across the board, most economies, euro currently has one of the higher unemployment figures currently. If you compare, with all the other economies, so euro's leading with one of the highest unemployment figures. So that makes me think: is there an opportunity to look for potential euro shorts next week? So with that, just jumping quickly into the charts. I will just focus on the euro dollar, which I think the short has already happened with the break of a trend line. This is scribbling from last week, but what I want to do is go to a longer time frame, a weekly time frame, to see where things are at. And we still have a nice, decent amount of space, I would say, below here before the next, demand zone, or whatever you call it, horizontal level. So I would be on a watch out for potential euro shorts to see if we can take advantage of just a perceived weakness in the euro economy. Other than that, I think a lot of consolidation is happening next week. Some of the moves that we have been waiting for example, the dollar sing, etc., has already gone. but I'm a bit more hesitant to jump in next week. Let's see what happens after the Bitcoin rally, the stock market rally. Let's see what happens next before we make a decision fundamentally on where it's going what. So I think next week I myself will be focused on more technical trades with looking for opportunities for Euro shorts. That's all for me, Paul.
Thank you, Lexi. And gee whiz, I can hardly argue against any of that because it's very much aligned to what my technical scenario says this week. And I'll get to that, of course, in due course. But of course, in due course. Speaking of courses, the course of gold appears to be not down, not up, but sideways. And that puts a frown on the next presenter's face, of course.
Oh.
That's Ainslie. Hello, Ainslie. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, look, having a wonderful time.
It's good.
How about gold? Not
No.
having a wonderful time?
It's not. I'm just trying to, hang on, let me grab my screen. Share the screen. Hello, gold. Look at this, would you? It's almost like everybody's forgotten gold exists anymore. It has just gone nowhere for the last couple of days. And it's, look, if you come over onto the 4-hourly chart, which is on the left-hand side here, you can see this is a really strong level of support. It's 17, I've got it in at 1794, 95, 1794, 75 in the big pink number on the box. But in that range, it's come down here this last week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then being rejected. But the flip side of that is it didn't go anywhere. So it's really, really struggling. So there's obviously a really big push between the bears and the bulls trying to see which way it's going to go. But obviously the bulls are not letting this slip anything lower than around that 1795 support level. Where to next? Jules has just touched on a couple of the commodities, the commodities that are starting to push really high. Coal and iron ore's had a good week as well, pushing up higher. And copper, which is it was my shiny new friend for a while until China decided that there was too much. They didn't like the price and flooded the market and brought the price screaming back down. And copper was actually going sideways for quite a few weeks. So we can see here, but on Friday, it's a bit of a leading indicator for what's happening with the commodities. And bam, we've had this really big move up out of the mire here. I'll call it mire because it's no fun watching something that you really want to trade take off. So, and of course I missed that because that was stupid o'clock here in Sydney. But yeah, oh well, that's the way it goes. Let's see. But finally it has broken out of this huge consolidation box that it's been trading in for quite some time. What I am hoping it will do is wake up gold. Gold, we'd like to think as a bit of an inflationary hedge, but clearly nobody gives doesn't really care much about inflation at the moment. The real yields on the bonds are down, they're negative, and gold should be up. Gold's gone nowhere. It tried really, really, really hard, as you can see here, to be a bit of a safe haven. It just didn't work and came back down here. So let's see where we go to next week. We've got, all I can see is that to go south further at the moment, it's just met so much resistance at this support line, and we just have to sit there and be patient again. Gold's being a typical gold and just gone sideways for a little while. Let's see if we can get, oh look, I was going to say the seasonals and the COP data were all on side, but it's just not listening to anything at the moment. So I'm hoping that next week everybody will get on board and decide that gold really is shiny again. So that's where I'm at with gold, Geoff.
Cheers, Ainslie. The third last bar there just does look like it's a bit of a buy signal, doesn't it? But wow, look at all the headwinds.
Don't even. I'm going cross-eyed watching this actually. I come back and go, really? You're still back at that level again? So you know, between all the other joys that we have in Sydney at the moment, you know, walking from the lounge room to the kitchen to the kids' bedroom to make sure they're alive, that's about the extent of it. So coming back and checking on the charts, and it's just going nowhere. But you'd think with that lovely low test bar back, no, did it? No, nothing. But fingers crossed, a kick in the tail with copper, and copper might be the leading indicator, leading commodity that might take gold, possibly silver with it as well.
We need a leader, don't we? Maybe copper's it. Who knows? Thank you, mate. We'll be back with you very shortly, of course, to have a look at that black gold. And in the meantime, we're going to have a look at that stuff that's been going down. In Australia, it's like coal's prices. They're going down. But there was a little bit of a glimmer, Shukri, on the crypto market. Is it the start of a new crypto bull market?
Yeah, let's show the facts, and let's also discuss about what Julian said, because there is a relationship. So Jules also said that the volatility has gone down. This is the Bitcoin fear index. Of course, when there's fear, that's when you have the reverse, and people start buying, and that's what's happening. People start buying. The short sellers get squeezed out, which is what's happening now. Bitcoin is going out because of a short squeeze, but look at this. Okay, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a quadruple bottom on getting scared. People were scared. It went up, got slammed again, went up, got slammed again, and this is the fourth time, so that looks good. Also seems to coincide with that triple bottom. Yeah, I'm muted somehow. So let's look at where Bitcoin is. So I said last week that it depends on what the S&P 500 is doing. And look at that. Just look at that, just like that, right? I'm not surprised Bitcoin went up. I'm more surprised the S&P went up. So that was not a surprise. And it's also not a surprise that the shorts were caught on the wrong side this week. Ethereum, of course, is going up. Yes, Ethereum is a good buy because on August 4th, there is a triple halving, which reduces the inflation rate of Ethereum by 90%. That is a big deal. So I don't have time to look at the charts now. But what happened last time before the previous significant event, which was Ethereum 2.0, this is what I think will happen. It'll go like this, and then it'll go like that, around or after the news. So everyone's asking now, when is the DeFi summer? Just look at Chainlink, guys. If Chainlink can defend this, I think we could have a DeFi summer. You got to wait until Ethereum pumps first. So DeFi summer, I think, is around mid-August. Having said that, if you are in something called NFTs, you are doing very well. You are very happy. And let's see something here, and look at that. No, you don't look at that. This is Axie Infinity. Look what happened. It went up to 30, went down to 13, and now it went up straight up to 50. That is what you get in crypto. So this is Alice. If you're here, just go to patterns that matter. I mean, Alice got pumped here because of staking. You had to buy to stake Alice to get land. Same thing here. If you're in here, you know that it'll probably go up here until 4 days later when the staking ends. And that's all I have today. It is coming back. Good for us. But again, please be careful that this is a short squeeze. Probably we get stopped at around 36 or 40K, and that's fine with me.
Oh, hang on, a bit. Open my microphone. Okie dokie. Why is that fine with you? Why don't you want it to go to the moon again? You were always going to the moon.
Good question. Because when Bitcoin rests, the smaller ones go up.
Aha. So you're invested in the smaller ones, right?
Yes. If not, the investors are going to go for the less volatile instrument, which is Bitcoin. I know you guys think that Bitcoin is very volatile, but for us crypto guys, Bitcoin is the least volatile of all. A volatile one is like Axie Infinity, goes to 30, falls down to 13, and then goes to 50 the next week. That's volatile.
Oh my God, I need a towel to wipe the sweat off my brow. If that happens. Thank you, buddy. We'll catch up with you during the week. Much appreciated. All right, let's go back to Ainslie, who's now going to talk us through what's happening with oil. What's going on there with that black stuff, Ainsley?
Oh, look, it had a bit of a rugged week last week, didn't it? It did end up where it started. I'm just going to grab the share screen and get back on there again. Move us over there, of course. But look, you would think that the powers that be that ran OPEC and OPEC Plus and had their little meetings and had a little chit chat about lifting their restrictions of supply and going back to pumping again, you'd think they might have remembered what happened when they did that kind of thing. Oh, I don't know, about a year ago in April, and just before COVID really crunched in Europe and took oil all the way down to zero. You'd think they would remember that. Clearly they didn't. So here we had the fall off the cliff and almost back down to 65 over the top. We were up around that 77 level, it was nearly 77, wasn't it, Geoff? We double checked on that. It was 76.93 or something. Anyway,
within a bee's dick, mate. Yep.
It was close. It was very close. But then we came down here, came and looked back around to this level on a daily chart, which I don't normally do, and I'm pretty finicky with trend lines. But as you can see, this is actually holding onto the trend line. It's got no close below the 100 moving EMA. That's 100 exponential moving average. Came down, had a look at that, said thanks very much. We're getting things sorted out. We'll work it all out. And it took off again. And off we went. Now we've had a couple of steps up. Pretty technical, isn't it? I mean, consolidate, new high, go sideways. Oh, let's push up again. Again, you can see down here on the 4-hourly and the last Thursday evening, Friday I think it was, we've got a 200 simple moving average on the 4-hourly chart. And guess what? It's going to toggle, and it did. It toggled between the 100 moving average EMA and the 200 simple moving average, and it just toggled, and that was sitting right below the weekly pivot. So between not going very far, but the important thing is if we pop over to what happened on the daily chart, we had a close above the monthly pivot. So where to next? I would say we've had a nice little consolidation. It'll probably toggle a little bit more, but my next look in here, because nothing actually makes any sense with anything else that's going on. I'm looking for an entry point, and then I'm looking for another hit up around that 75 up to R1. It's been supported now. We've got 2 closes above the monthly pivot. So let's see how we go this week.
Thanks, I get the impression, cheers, Ainslie. I get the impression that commodities may be on the cusp. Have you got that feeling?
I've got I mean, look, gold's been going sideways for how long? Oil has, OPEC and IEAs and everything else that had thrown at it. So it has had a really good rally, but it's also had a really good pullback. Iron ore also had a good rally this week. Coal, off it went. Copper is taken off. And look, let's see. So I think the commodities, and they all say are coming out of a pandemic, and whilst some of us are still in lockdown for the foreseeable future, there are other countries that have got themselves organised with vaccinations, and they're moving ahead, and they're getting things back together, and they're doing things like getting on a plane and having a freaking holiday somewhere that's not in their own backyard. So yeah, there are those other demands outside this little bubble that are all starting to kick back in again.
Yeah, I think it depends on your stance on that, really, doesn't it?
It does, and that's why my caveat to that is, how does the Delta variant?
Yep. There's a big question mark there, isn't
there? Yeah, there's a big question mark. How's that going to go? How's that going to actually impact the whole lovely idea? Because gosh, we're seeing it just hit so hard here. It's not funny. So has that been priced into markets? Probably not at this stage, because I think a lot of people think, right, great, fantastic. Reading some articles about people, Aussie expats living in Seattle, where they've got an incredible percentage of their population is vaccinated, and they're talking about over 12-year-olds as well. Absolutely vaccinated up to, I think they're up around 74% or something, I think I was reading. Yet they were absolutely decimated when COVID first came to them last year. It came to their city. And it's just how they see it and how they're looking at it now, saying, well, the vaccinations helped. Yes, we understand the Delta, but to them, everything's back to normal. Who knows?
Yep. And you've got 50,000 cases apparently per day in the United States at the moment, some of which, I don't know what percentage of which, have been fully vaccinated, and some have also had the virus before. What the outcome of that is, nobody knows at the moment. So, you know, we're not in a clear picture at the moment, I don't believe, as far as COVID's concerned. So, yeah, I guess it's just watch this space.
Yeah.
Trade what's in front of you is probably where we're at.
Yeah.
Yep.
And don't look for really, really long trades at the moment.
Yeah, I had a few trailing stops taken out last week, but I mean they were in good shape, so not really concerned.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, mate.
Oil. See you later.
Thank you so much. Oils are not oils at the moment. We will see how that pans out, of course. What we'll also see is what the indexes are doing around the currency market. And to do that for us each and every week, we have the wonderful Lloyd to come in and give us all the guff on the basic indexes for all of these major currencies. What do you got, mate?
Hi, Geoff. All right, so let's have a look at the indices. Actually, the theme for the indices will actually be the same for the past 3 weeks, I guess. Yeah, I still don't see any fantastic strength in any of the index. Yeah, so I'm still going to continue shorting some of the pairs. Now, let's have a review of the last week pairs that I'm ought to be trading. So the first one is actually CAD Yen. Wanted to short this. Price actually had broke down on Monday morning, and that's about it. I didn't get into it. Yeah. So now it has actually went above the horizontal level. Yeah. So this is an interesting development. So I think we can actually shift this stop loss. No, not stop loss. Sorry, the horizontal level, and see how price actually interact over here. Yeah. So we may have a potential reversal to go long on CAD Yen. So we shall see about that. Now, Swiss made a small profit on this. So what happens is that price indeed broke down, retested. So I actually went in on the bearish bar. So it nearly got to my 3:1. It doesn't want really to give me the money. So instead, it actually went back to the horizontal level. Yeah. So what happens is that I got into this trade. So the moment price give me a higher low, I actually shifted my stop loss to the last swing point. Yeah. So I was out for a bit of profit. Now, I think this analysis to me still stands. Yeah, so I should see if I have further opportunity to short hot Swiss this week. I'm going to revise this level. There'll be somewhere here. Yeah, so what I'm waiting for is for price to actually break the level, retest, and then I'll be going to go short one more time. Yeah, so now the other two, what I'm looking at this week, like I mentioned earlier, I don't see any particular strength across the board. Yeah, so the highest possibility is actually DXY, the British pound. So what happens is that we can see that price is bouncing off a horizontal level on the weekly chart with a very, very nice low test bar. Yeah. So this may be an opportunity for us to get into pound. Pound may be possibly be in a range. I don't know. But this, to me, I see this as an opportunity to at least trade it back up to 140. Yeah, so there's plenty of room for us to go on. Next is Swiss. From pound onwards, all the others to me is still displaying weakness. Yeah, so Swiss is really still, if I can short it, I will not say short it, but really price for Swiss is in the consolidation. Yeah, so I don't really exactly have a good idea, but on the big picture, Swiss is still displaying lower high and lower low. Yeah, so this is, I would say, still on a weakness side. Now for euro, again, very similar situation to pound. You can see that it's more or less in a range situation. Yeah, so price is now on a horizontal level. I think we might have opportunity to actually trade towards the high side or the low side, depending on how price interacted with the horizontal level. Yeah, so there may be some early opportunity for the hourly and 4-hour time frame. Kiwi price broke down, retested. This is still a bearish buy in effect, but it's really a low test bar. Yeah, so I'll really wait for Monday and Tuesday to give me any indication whether Kiwis are gonna pop above 70 or just gonna continue its way downwards. Yeah, so this one for Kiwi I really need to observe on Monday and Tuesday. But for currently, because price is closing below 70, my sentiment is bearish. DXY, similar situation to pound euro. Yeah, you can see that price is more or less in range. So we might have opportunity to actually short it back down to $90. I was wrong big time on Canadian index last week. So price actually gapped down and shoot up all the way throughout the week. Yeah, but not really keen on trading this pair for the moment, because once there's a gap, price close a gap and it's very near the major horizontal level, $80. I'm keen to see what price does. So again, observation mode on Monday and Tuesday. If there's a strong rejection of $80, then I'm going to short it. Yen, as I mentioned last week, price is still going to be weak. Yeah, so no surprises here. But since it's near a horizontal level, rather reluctant to trade it. No clear indication actually where price will go. And the last is the Australian index. Yeah, so you can see that price, once it breaks out of range, is still falling. Interestingly, it is actually at a horizontal level. Yeah, so I wouldn't be too hasty to short Aussie at the moment. Would really like to see how price interact with the level on Monday, and then I might have a game planned. So coming to it, this coming week, really pound odd might be the possible play that I'm looking at. Odd streets as just now I've highlighted. So pound odd, I'm looking for price to actually break above the horizontal level, retest, and then I'll go for a happy long. Yeah, other than that, I'm prepared to sit up for the rest of the week. That's all for me, Geoff.
Cheers, Lloyd. The Aussie is certainly coming into focus at the moment, and we do have varying opinions on the Aussie, but I agree with that chart. I think pound Aussie is a buy if it can break to the high side. Thank you, mates. We'll catch up during the week with you, most certainly. I am going to share what I hope is the right screen. So what screen's all over the place at the moment in your computer. If you could please tell me, Lloyd, if I've got my Kiwi US dollar monthly chart up, that would be awesome.
Yep, that's your chart.
Thank you, mate. Okay, so my turn. And at this time, of course, I look at what my technical eyes are telling me. And my technical eyes are telling me that on Kiwi US dollar at the moment, we have an interesting scenario. I'm looking at the monthly chart, and the monthly chart is pretty clear to me that we have broken a previous resistance level. We've now come back and retested that level, and we've also gone into a range since that was the case. That's a monthly chart, of course, I'm looking at. I've now been presented at the bottom of that range with a key reversal bar, what I call a key reversal bar. Okay, it's got a red body, but that just makes it sweeter for me, because I like to have candles that are going in the opposite direction, or at least their body's going in the opposite direction to which I wish to trade. Got a monthly pivot sitting up here that is pretty clear and hasn't really been tested. It is the top of the range that I see immediately, and we've got tomorrow's weekly pivot sitting at a strategic key level. So I'm expecting this to go long sometime this week. Trading it, of course, or where we get into the market is key. Weekly pivot disappears tomorrow, comes down to here, as I said. What I would probably like to see here is a pretty clear higher low. That may be it. I wouldn't be trading that candle because I don't like it, but I'd much prefer to see something on a daily chart come down to here, give us a retest, sorry, not a retest, but give us a low test bar. and then I could trade that long. There may be a break of a resistance trend line here as well and a retest. That would be pretty cool. Also, any one of those combinations would work for me. We're starting to get higher highs and lows on the 4-hour time frame. As I say, a pullback and a higher low in here does get me interested, or so does a break of resistance. On Kiwi US dollar, pretty keen on that. Looks good. Still on the Kiwi, but this time against the Swissy. And this one also interesting from a majorly, I guess, bullish point of view from my perspective. Reason? Well, we have broken a long-term support and resistance area here. That coincides pretty much with tomorrow's weekly pivot and around about 64 handle, 0.64 handle. If I go a little bit tighter on that chart, you can see that that trend line that was broken has now been retested and rejected, as has tomorrow's weekly pivot. Not sure that that's a key indicator, but also if you fancy this, as probably Ash would, and if Ash was in tomorrow in our show, Trading Buddies, I would probably be looking for this. His opinion on this is that a right shoulder on a potential head and shoulders reversal pattern. That's the monthly chart, of course, but the weekly chart is telling me that this range, again, we've got a range up the top here. We've come off the bottom of it. We believe, or I believe, that the next move here is up. To where? Great question. I have no idea at this point, except to say that it probably will certainly retest that level, in my opinion, but maybe even retest the highs here. Any higher low in this vicinity does look good to me, exactly what I've just said pretty much on the Kiwi versus the US dollar. So it's pretty much the same thing, maybe even the same trade, but keep your eye on that one. I think the nice little double bottom there, we're screaming out for a higher low here to trade long. Cable, I agree with on his analysis of the pound versus the Aussie, but versus the US dollar, and I'm not a US dollar fan, of course, but the major thing I see on this chart is this massive double bottom here. And it's super clear. You can't mistake that. That's a double bottom. And we have, you know, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if we have a range here for the next 100 years. Not 100 years, but quite some time. And I think we've hit the top of that range, which really means I'm looking for a lower high in here somewhere. But at the very moment, I see a rejection of this level here, which has, of course, been rejected before. But more than that, I see a potential range forming in here on pound US dollar. And if that's the case, then this is probably going long before it goes short and maybe even to retest the highs. If I go to the daily chart, it's showing me a pretty clear false break, if you like, or fake out, call it what you want, of that level there, 137.56, as I've got it on my chart. We've broken back into it. We've retested it. And I think there's potentially an entry there for you on the daily chart tomorrow morning. Caveat, as is always the case coming out of a weekend, if we've got a gap in the market, forget what I just said completely until that gap no longer is a play or a factor. But even now, if there was no Monday morning tomorrow and no potential gap, I would certainly be looking to trade this long above that bar right there, and I'd put my stop loss below it. I think that's a pretty strong indicator that this market, to me, that this market is going long for maybe only a short period of time, as I said, but maybe up to this level here around about the 139 mark. So that will be my target for the week coming up on pound US dollar. You may be able to pick that up against the euro. Again, I agree with Lloyd's analysis. I think the euro is in, I won't say dire straits, but I don't think it's going to be a strong currency anytime soon. Monthly chart is telling me that we've got a big double top here. It's also telling me that we've come off there and we're screaming out for a lower high here. It hasn't come. That makes it a little bit tricky for me. And the point that the fact that we're at potentially the bottom of that range or near to it, also adds to the confusion. However, the bearish nature that I have around this suggests to me that this level could be retested easily. So if you go down to the time frames, weekly chart, big rejection of that level last week. It brought us way back into this descending channel that we've got. Again, the way I play false breaks is setting up perfectly for this. It's a giant false break, I've got to say, but we've broken out of this range, that being the descending channel. We've come back inside it. We've retested it with this bar, which was rejection bar, rejection of the weekly pivot last week, monthly pivot, rejection of the daily pivot, rejection of the weekly pivot. And I think an entry underneath that bar, which is the daily bar of Friday, makes perfect sense to me. Get some money in the bank before you hit those lows. But I think this can continue to go south and substantially go south. So euro pound is a big sell for me tomorrow. Again, caveat is if there's a gap in the market, then wait till that settles down and pick it up maybe on a different time frame. I don't know. But I think that's a trade for me tomorrow morning. If there is no gap or no substantial gap, be trading underneath that bar, and I'll put my stop loss above it. Euro pound short. So that is my look at the technical charts for the week, and that kind of wraps the show for the week as well. Thank you all to all the presenters that have participated and shared their knowledge. I think this is really a valuable hour of I was going to call it television, because I used to work in television, but I think this is a very valuable hour, and I pick up a whole heap of stuff in this hour, and I hope you do too. We look forward to your company next week when we'll do it all again. So it's bye-bye for now. See ya.